So, hey, Dan, good to see you again.
Yeah, Cory, it's always a pleasure. Just what a day.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, for a person with your specialty, some of the commenters have already been looking forward to seeing you. I mean, you've been outspoken on energy issues and consumer issues for a long time.
Yep.
And as I kind of said, now's the period where it's of mixed blessing, where you can say, "I told you so." I mean, you've been shouting this from the rooftops for a long time, and now it's really come home to roost, hasn't it?
Well, I live here in Eastern Canada, in Oakville. It's nice to be able to finally look at my neighbors and say, you believe me now?
Yeah.
What did it take? $1.85 a liter, heading to $2 a liter before, you finally woke up. My kids say it's a little bit like shaking someone's head and hearing the rattle here. There's a little less of that now, thankfully.
So I mean, something you didn't see, I'm sure, not many of us. I mean, we saw the lack of local energy security, and we've been kind of throttling our local production abilities and transportation abilities for
Yep.
oil and gas. But I mean, we didn't anticipate the Ukraine-Russia war to really take it and exacerbate it so quickly like this. We're in kind of a lot of trouble across the country. This, on top of the inflation from a lot of other factors, we're in for a rough ride, I imagine.
Well, look, denying your own resources and your ability to help stabilize the world after 30, 40 years of being subject to the vagaries of inflation and OPEC should have wakened people up to the reality that the hard fought move in the mid 20s, 2003 to 2010, both to increase Canada's oil capacity and the US fracking, wasn't done out of out of the goodness of our hearts or because we were bored. It was done because the alternative was that we were on our knees and at the beck and call of those who had oil and those who had hydrocarbons. The fact that we got there only to find a generation of people now saying times are good. Money's easy. We got all our fat pensions. We got all of our roads paid for and all our hospitals paid for. Not really, but I think we've taken for granted the very thing that gave Canada a substantial boost in its prosperity over the past 20 to 25 years. And we've looked a gift horse in the mouth by saying, hey, who gives a damn that we can raise $25 billion from the oil and gas sector that pays for our hospitals, that pays for education, that pays for our roads, and it doesn't matter where you are in this country. I think what's happened now, Cory, is that this is a little bit like dumping a cold pail of water on everyone's head and making them stand up and realize, hey, you can't take these things for granted. You got Russia laughing. You got the United States embarrassingly going on bend knee to Iran and to Venezuela. Two countries with great environmental track records, great human rights records. Now we're saying to them, can we get a bit of oil, please? Because we were too busy shutting down the Keystone XL pipeline. I spent a lot of time working with media in the United States in my previous job at Gas Buddy, and it's amazing. They could not see what was happening in Canada, the deconstruction, the attack, the activism, the foreign-funded groups that were destroying our oil and gas sector while Canadians sat back and lived high on the hog. The Americans didn't believe this was going to happen. Well, now reality is beginning to bite, and they're having none of it. Unlike many Canadians who is realized far after it's too late, Americans actually preemptively saying to Mr. Biden, you and your Congress, you and your Democratic friends over in the House of Representatives, get ready because we're going to put you on the 30-yard line and we're going to punt you right through the end zone.
Yeah, they got some midterms coming up that they're not looking very good for right now, and nothing sours political support faster than hitting everybody in the pocketbook just before the election. But they don't seem to be showing. Like, what I'm wondering, are we going to learn? And I mean we in general, not to mention that the government's learning from this. Like Biden, as you said, is going and groveling to Saudi Arabia, but he's never uttered a peep on even considering increasing Canadian supply. We're right on his doorstep, and he just absolutely will not consider that as an alternative.
No, because they're beholden to the green grifters who have been having a good run of his party. I mean, there's actually some people I speak to, many of my friends in America say they didn't like Trump, but it was sure a heck of a lot better back then than it is now. Look, you limit your options when you forget the recent history of your country, and Americans have to be able to understand that their place in the world, and global security goes hand in hand with energy security. The extent to which you compromise that, you play games with that, you'll learn the lesson that Europeans are learning. Even Boris Johnson today knows that his net zero fantasies have been blown to smithereens. Like it or not, they've got to frack. Like it or not, they've got to build nuclear. Like it or not, they've got to accept that oil is still very much a part of the foreseeable future for the next 50 to 60 years. So All these ideas of, it's political demagoguery of, we have to have net zero by a certain period of time. We have to get rid of, internal combustion engines. That is now very seriously being challenged, and not by folks like me or you. When Elon Musk says you got to make more oil, it kind of makes it a little interesting for the greenies to go out and say that, it's all about climate. We have to get rid of these things. No one in the right mind wants to go down that road. And so I think we have to have policies in this country based on reality, not stuff of, magic and make believe, and a narrative that I think has been, has led us to this point where demagogues and very, unsavory dictators like Vladimir Putin and Maduro and others hold the balance of power by holding the energy which we currently have.
Well, so I mean, are we seeing any rumblings of reality coming from the east? Now, I know for Energy East, for example, it wouldn't help us right now unless it was already in the ground and producing. Are we finally starting to set our sights farther down the road? Like, we understand that it would take years to get some sort of good energy corridor going, connecting the country east to west. But can't we get started on this thing realistically, not regulating it to death, not trying to throttle it? And we're not seeing any of that discussion starting either, though, are we?
Well, the damage is there, isn't it? But I mean, the main line, which is the Energy East, is already built to Ontario. I think people, it was 2/3 built. You sat around, you farted around, you did your nonsense, and you did the same thing for the Trans Mountain Pipeline. You wound up costing the taxpayer tens of billions of dollars that could otherwise go to, I don't know, programs that would help Canadians, especially in difficult circumstances. Instead, our virtue signaling, our desire to ignore reality, our desire to wish away that which is obvious, a little bit like the governments are taking the view that the sun rises in the west and settles in the east. I mean, if we want to be a bunch of flat earthers about this, that's fine. But perhaps you want to choose another job rather than leading a country, because what you've done here is led the country down a very dangerous path. It can't pay back its bills. It's not attracting capital. It's incapable of maintaining its economic growth at a time in which prices have risen 60 cents a liter just in the past 2 months alone. I don't see how we're going to get out of this unless someone finally has the gumption to stand up and say, it's pipelines, stupid. It really is. And that's what it's coming down to.
Yeah, I mean, there's no single item really of any kind of good we can point to that raises every single aspect of our standard of or cost of living, aside from energy. I mean, that one's when it goes up, everything goes up. We can't avoid that. I mean, we're just, like I said, seeing the first tastes of the inflation. Once trucking companies, farmers, of course, producers, we're going to be in a great deal of trouble once those prices come all the way down to the consumer level. Trans Mountain, there's another one, as you said. I mean, they bought it because they'd cornered the company and pushed it too far, but that thing's been stalled. I mean, they keep saying it's under construction, but it should have been done a while ago. And from what I can hear, it's funny, they got a cone of silence on them too. I can't get any workers to talk to us. They'll be fired for even considering talking to us. Yeah. That thing isn't moving. It's not going anywhere. Again, shouldn't we see some movement to expedite it? I mean, that won't help with domestic supply, but it'll bring in some income because we've maxed out our export capabilities, and we could pay for, as you said, the hospitals and all the other things people want.
Let me make it really easy for people that are listening in here, Cory. If you open one pipeline, say the Trans Mountain expansion was open tonight, that 28-cent discount the Canadian dollar is getting versus the US greenback is contributing to the inflation of everything we have. Open up a pipeline and you'd go back to the good old days of 2010, 2008, 2014, where the Canadian dollar was trading on par, sometimes stronger than the US greenback. Let me put it in very simple perspectives. You'd be saving 28 cents a liter on the price of gasoline. You'd be paying 28 cents than what you're paying today. No amount of taxation, removal, or anything can do what that once did. We have sacrificed our status as a petroleum producing country capable of sending our products that are desperately needed to a world that is lined up to say the most ethical nation that produces energy is in fact Canada. And you don't just do it, you have the best practices for it. And despite the negativity and the disinformation, that alone would save every person driving a car today 27 cents a liter. Now think about it. You multiply that by your Dodge Caravan, which takes 70 liters. Now that's a $15 savings right from the get-go every single week. What would that mean over the year? A savings of $1,500 to $1,800. Cory, this is a no-brainer, but obviously some people are conflicted with it. And it seems to me that if we don't want to build pipelines in this country, then be prepared to accept a decrease in your standard of living because you have voted for it, especially the folks around here in Eastern Ontario and in the GTA and around Toronto. It's a bitter harvest we're about to indulge in, and for that reason, it's not just gasoline, it's not just diesel, it's the price of everything, most notably food, where we can't. There's no room for argument or there's no room for debate.
Yeah, well, and the reality check is definitely here. I wish I could hear more rumblings of voices like yours of people saying, well, okay, this is where we're at. This is how we got to get out of it. This is what we could do to ease it. And I'm not seeing that discussion yet. And it really worries me. Even from if we want to play we want to be good world players and help the world and be selfless. Well, the best way we could do that is getting good, clean, liquid natural gas to these countries that are suffering in this energy crisis right now, or getting good, ethically sourced Canadian oil products out to them. And again, we aren't allowing any coastal access. These things are all choked up.
They are, and it's a deliberate policy. And I know that people don't like it, but I got to tell you, Cory, it's a little easier to make that argument now than it was 2 months ago. Yeah. The old expression, Tennyson, was it, to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, seems to ring very, very true here. I think we're getting more people listening. And those who don't listen, those who think that they control the message, well, pox on their doors, but they're going to become increasingly irrelevant. And I would challenge, of course, my friends who I've worked with for 30 years in the mainstream media. Good luck with continuing to try to suppress it. I had a CBC talk show host try to do that to me last week. Oh, there's nothing clean about oil. And I said to him, I reminded him, name a single project in this country that can be built without it. Name a single EV that can be built without it. Name to me any windmill or any photovoltaic, any solar panel that can be built without it. The fact of the matter is, and even Elon Musk recognizes this, oil may not be what you want it to be, but at the end of all of this, it's the main reason why we prosper as a country and we are moving ahead in a very clean way as a civilization. And that's probably bad news to the bad news to the bad news green bears out there.
Well, and just one final question. It's from a commenter, Peter LaFontaine says, can Dan comment on the Greens saying this is why we need to accelerate the expensive renewables? And I'm hearing that from some others. They're saying, well, this is actually evidence that we need to move harder on windmills and we need more solar and more, goat power or whatever we're supposed to do. But they're actually taking that tact rather than recognizing that maybe we need these petrochemicals right now.
Yeah, they got it spectacularly wrong, and now they want to do even more. Look, I think the fanaticism has to end. And sooner or later, they have to give their heads a shake because, frankly, they got it wrong, spectacularly wrong, and dangerously wrong. And they've made the world a far more dangerous place. And they've created two problems, which is greater than their climate emergency or climate crisis. We have an energy crisis, a real one that's hurting people. And we have now a global security crisis. That's something that has never been discussed. You know what, folks? You've had a 2-for-1 shot and you lost. It's time to pack up and go.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I know you're going to be in for a busy week, and you already have been, as people keep calling back. Geez, Dan, you were right. But the discussion's not over, as we said. We really got to make sure, okay, people realize there's a problem, but we got to make sure they realize where the solution is too. So that the work isn't done. And I appreciate you always speaking out in that front. You're the only among the few former Liberal member of Parliament that I enjoy talking
We'll have a few more. Watch. The day's young, Cory.
Oh, there's some out there. I know that, and I appreciate it.
I was one of the young ones 20 years, 30 years ago. So some of them are a little maxed out, but there's a change. That change is afoot.
So where can people keep up with what you're doing, Dan, and find out more about you?
Sure. I run affordableenergy.ca. The site often has blogs and this kind of information that gives people a bit of a heads up in terms of what's on my mind. I've been a little busy of late, so you haven't seen as many. Also go to gaswizard.ca. I don't just talk about energy and say it's wrong or right or it's expensive. I actually try to do something about it by predicting those prices a few days ahead. So try to go there. I'll try to save you a few bucks, and maybe along the way, this current form of the Liberal Party will do what I did, which was to give 2 energy rebates and maybe some help to Canadians rather than finding cute, trendy ways to, as it were, fleece them.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Dan. Always a pleasure talking to you, and keep up that good work.
You bet. Take care. Bye, Cory.
All right, bye.